Okay, boys and girls, welcome back. Welcome back to another stream where we talk about the Raiders losing again. So, my name is Rodney. If you didn't know that, I come on here every Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern, to have such a fun time recapping yet another loss where the Raiders didn't look competitive, save for about a half a quarter. And today is no different from most other days for Raider fans. And what's funny is I had a couple family members of mine who are Steelers fans who I've referenced in these Bleach Report streams reach out to me mid-game. And, here's what I'll say about Steelers fans. They're not exactly like other fan bases where they are insufferable. They're fine. They were checking on my mental health and well-being. And they were asking me, are you doing okay in the middle of this game? How are things? And I said something that I really believe at this point, being a Raider fan as long as I have. I must have done something really horrific in a past life. We all must have collectively as a unit of Raider fans to deserve watching that team consistently every Sunday, day in and day out. And we'll get into the problems that this team faces. But first, you know the drill. Start commenting away. Where are we watching from? What are your thoughts on the state of the Raiders? How are you feeling? First time watcher, been watching forever? Are you watching the playback on YouTube? If you don't know, excuse me, I have a YouTube channel right down here. It's ALLaBorde Raiders. If you type that in, we're doing Raider videos all the time, breaking down film, giving takes, yada, yada, yada. So let's get this thing rocking and rolling here. Thank you, Bleach Report, for having me back. And I'm not kidding. I feel like I did something really horrific in a past life to deserve having to continue to watch the product that the Raiders put on the field, not only this year, but every year, save for 2021 and 2016, and even in 2021. It was absolutely nightmarish, some of the stuff that was happening to us. But this is a team right now that is not very competitive. And we're going to get into Antonio Pierce, and we're going to get into Aiden O'Connell. Let's just bring up the box score right now as you guys start firing away your thoughts and feelings into the chat, because this is a safe space. This is a place to vent your feelings and to show the passion, or just do whatever, because it's getting increasingly harder and harder to continue to talk about this team as a team that wants to win football games consistently. And Flyest Artist right off the rip says, we're clearly tanking. Y'all can't see it. And that's something I do want to talk about. I want to talk about the idea of tanking, getting the guy you want in the draft. Is it the right thing to do? Everyone's saying fire Getsy, fire AP. We suck. We always lose to the Steelers in bad fashion. Yep. Okay. Let's pull up the old box score, the thing we love looking at, right? We love looking at this thing after every game. 32-13 is your final score. There's really not much here to like. Total yards was pretty low, so were the Steelers. Passing yards was abysmal. Couldn't run the football, 4.6 per play. The first downs were about the same. Third down, we could not convert any third downs to save our lives. The offensive line, maybe a bright spot of the whole game, at least pass protection-wise. They only had one sack, the Pittsburgh Steelers did, and that was Cameron Hayward making a play. We'll get into maybe the few positives, if not the only positive of this whole game, the draft class that we just had. Penalties, 4 for 42. Not terrible, but 3 of those 4 penalties really came back to bite us in the behind. Good calls, bad calls, didn't matter. It's the reality of the situation. Time of possession was pretty even. But again, the thing that kills us in every single game that we've lost so far, the turnovers. 2 fumbles lost, an interception that was pretty meaningless. Let's just get down to business here and start with Aiden O'Connell. He was fine. He was, the task at hand for Aiden. And I don't know if a quarterback is going to be able to succeed when the head coach just says, just don't turn the ball over. That's all you got to do. Like, if I was the player in that situation, I'd be like struggling to play my brand of football. Stretch the ball down the field. AP's like, yeah, we want to let it rip, but we want to protect the football. Okay, I understand what he's going for there. Let's just make sure our defense is in the position to hold them from scoring. Let's not turn the ball over and kind of play field position. The problem, AP, is that your defense is not as good, not even in the same universe as the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. So offensively, you're going to have to make some plays without being afraid of turning the ball over. And Aiden was fine. I thought he made mostly the right read. He was getting the ball out quick and accurate. From my count, he had one really bad throw, which was the throw over the middle of Harrison Bryant on a 3rd and 6 where he just airmailed it. It was too high. Harrison Bryant had to reach up. And then he threw the pick at the end of the game. We're down 3 scores in the 4th quarter. He's just trying to make a play. The game's over at that point. I do think he looked better than Gardner Minshew, and going forward, I'd just like to have the rest of the season with Aiden. But, and I want to talk about this game versus the Denver game. The reason we lose these 2 games is because we keep turning the ball over. And 3 of those turnovers, right, happened. One was in our own red zone. Another one was at the goal line where if we score on that play, and by the way, the play before that, or 2 plays before that, Aiden throws a touchdown, but it's an illegal man downfield. If we score on that play, we're down 8 or 7, depending on what happens with the 2-point conversion. And it's a 1-point game, or sorry, a 1-possession game with a whole 4th quarter to play. Instead, you fumble at the goal line, game's over. Same thing last week. You can go up 17-3, pick 6, game over. The quarterback play wasn't the reason for the turnovers in this game like it was in the Denver game, which is why I thought Aiden was marginally better than Gardner. But when you're rolling out the offense that we rolled out, and forget the offense, when you're rolling out the team we rolled out yesterday, you're just not winning any games. It's an embarrassing roster that they rolled out, and it's not their fault that the injuries are piling up, right? But the Steelers defense was injured too, and they just continue to find a way. So as I pull up the stats here, and we're going to get into our first poll in a second because the polls are spicy, okay? Actually, we'll do this first poll right now. We'll do this first one right now because I see a lot of people talking about tanking in the chat. I see Flystar says tanking isn't quote unquote intentionally losing as much as it is putting players and coaches in situations that makes it impossible for them to win. Fielding less talented, inexperienced players, coaches, allowing young guys to learn rather than by watching. I don't disagree with that. Now, here's my question to the nation as we continue to break this game down while looking ahead not only to next few games but to the draft. And I do believe that Turner O'Connell had nobody to throw to, and I'll get to that in a second. Is the season already lost? What are our thoughts on that? Because I see a lot of people say just start tanking. It's over. We're done. Still too early. They've got one more game. Here's my thoughts on this. It feels like the season's lost. It feels like it's over. It feels like this regime is content with kind of positioning ourselves in the best position to draft a quarterback. And that's fine. We're going to need a franchise quarterback to get this thing rocking and rolling again. I think they went with Minshew because he had some experience winning games and almost making the playoffs last year. And they were like, we're going to go with Devontae and Jacoby and Brock, and we're going to have Zamir White, and we're going to have this great defense. And then in 4 games, they realized quickly, whether that's Telesco and Mark Davis or AP, this is not working. Now let's go with Aiden, the younger kid. If some guys are banged up and they might be able to play like Jacoby Myers, we're just not going to play them. And we're going to lose, even though we're not trying to lose. But look, I mean, guys, look at the roster we just ran out on this field. And again, it's not entirely like our fault for the injuries. But this running back room, I mean, that's a nightmare. And then besides Brock Bowers, you've got Trey Tucker and a bunch of UDFAs catching passes. I mean, there was a moment in the game where we needed to get a 2-point conversion, and the primary receiver was Alex Bachman. No disrespect to him or anyone who loves him, but what are we doing with that? Again, Michael Mayer is MIA because he's dealing with, I think, some mental health issues. Thoughts and prayers with him. Nothing but love for Michael Mayer. And yeah, Romano, we were up 7-3 after the first quarter, but at a certain point, like, this roster that you throw out there is a nightmare. That roster is not gonna win you a single game. So, I'm in the mindset, tanking, still too early. They've got one more game. I'm in the mindset they got one more game because we are about to play a team that's about as banged up as us. They've got the better quarterback and the better coach. They're about as banged up as us. And right now, it feels like we're in that coming off a loss to the Vikings 3-0 vibe last year, where it's like, what we just lost the game 3-0. This feels like we just lost back-to-back games where we just kept making the same mistake. And we need a 2013 Los Angeles Chargers type performance to give us any sort of reason to believe the season's not over. So next week, if we get Jacoby back, and if the rumors of maybe Devontae will play next week, who knows? Maybe get Zamir White back, get a little more healthy on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, we got one linebacker back in Divine Diablo, and he was flying around making plays, picked off Justin Fields, even though it was a penalty. If we play next week like we played the Chargers and completely flip the script and we're 3-3, okay, then let's see. But that doesn't feel like a likelihood at this point. So I mean, I don't even want to go like DJ Turner, Alexander Madison, Alex Bachman, Harrison Bryant, Kimbrough Wilkerson. Like this is not it. This is not it. So I'm going to end this poll here. I'm going to start reading some comments because I see a lot of them flying fast and furious. Most people think we just need to start tanking. Let's see here. C. Jones for 2. We're going to talk about how bad the play calling was. I think Aiden would have played better, still would have lost if the coaches trust him. Yeah, I mean, I've been a Luke Getsy defender, I guess you could say, for a while, and I know it's going to be like, oh, they put Aiden in, and then we still suck, and now you want to go after Getsy. I think last week or yesterday, Getsy had a bad game. That 2nd and 18 run was really bad. However, again, look at the roster that I just put up on the screen. I don't know how many offensive coordinators can scheme a win up against that kind of defense with the current weaponry we were running out there. And look, this outcome is not too dissimilar from the outcome I expected even before I knew Jacoby Myers wasn't going to play. The difference is you're up 7-3. You're down one possession going into the third. You're about to be down one possession going into the fourth. As bad as you played and as bad as the roster is that you've thrown out there, I think the problem with this team right now, more than anything, and I hate doing this, but I'm going to push the poll and I'm going to pin it right now. The problem with this team, in my opinion, is that good roster, bad roster, they don't look prepared to play. Because I see teams like the Rams or the Steelers who have depleted rosters, who have not ideal quarterback play. Justin Fields yesterday was terrible. The only reason he didn't throw interceptions is because he was skipping balls. This team doesn't look ready to play football. They continue to turn the ball over. They continue to acquire costly penalties in awful situations to extend drives for bad offenses. And in my opinion, that is solely the responsibility of the head coach. And Antonio Pierce is a lot to blame for how this team's looked so far. Because you could lose games you're supposed to lose. But last year we were competitive in every single game. We didn't have any game that looked like this. And this year, more often than not, we're not competitive. So I think the question needs to be asked, is Antonio Pierce on the hot seat? And Romano, I'm not saying the second 18 was on Pierce. I'm not saying that. But there is a chance that he's telling him, Luke Getsy, be ultra conservative here because we need to just put our defense in the best position to win. And the broadcast even said as much. The broadcast said that might be a coaching point, a head coaching point, to just make sure we're not trying anything crazy here. We're not privy to the conversations that AP and Luke Getsy have. I don't know. I think the question needs to be asked: is Antonio Pierce on the hot seat? And I'm not one to try to fire coaches midseason. I don't think that works. I mean, not that I don't think that works, but I don't think that's the long term solution. It might work in the short term, but it's not the long term solution. But if things start to get super weird here, you know, and Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator, comes calling and says, "I'll take your job. I'll pick the quarterback, and we're going to get this thing rocking and rolling." I don't I don't see a world in where AP survives the season. If we win 4 games and we're not competitive and does Mark Davis trust Antonio Pierce to usher in the next young quarterback of Las Vegas? Again, I'm not saying that this is something that I would do. I'm not saying that this is something that should be done. But I don't know if Mark Davis is just going to give Antonio Pierce 3 seasons to get this thing right. And J-Lo says he has to be the leader of this team. It reflects on him. Retaining AP made him a sacrificial lamb as a coach. He never stood a chance. It was obvious he'd be retained, so he could lose. We find our next QB. I see. No, man, it's not his fault that his injuries are going down. It's not his fault. Mark Davis didn't want him to move in the draft to get a QB. Well, that's not true. Mark Davis did want to go up in the draft. They offered 3 first-round picks to the Washington Commanders to try to get Jane Daniels. Mark Davis gave AP and Tom Telesco the green light to move up, and nobody wanted to play ball. So that we got to be careful with that there. He has to give him at least 1 full season, and I think he will. I don't think he's going to get fired. I don't. I think we're going to get 1 full season. But I don't disagree with the idea that maybe this was a Lovie Smith, Houston Texans type play to bring a coach in to try to be scrappy and competitive, to build a culture. The Houston Texans are terrible with Lovie Smith. They lose a bunch of games. They fire him, even though the roster is bad. It wasn't his fault that Houston was as bad as they were. In 1 year, they fire him. They draft C.J. Stroud with a new head coach. They keep the same GM in Caserio. This could be what the Raiders end up doing. And then in 1 season, the Houston Texans flipped the script because they hit on the quarterback, because their roster was just a few players away. And now the Houston Texans are a perennial competitor. Maybe we're doing the Houston Texans approach. And if Ben Johnson or it's Clint Kubiak, whoever is the next guy here, if he picks the right quarterback, we could be rocking and rolling. And I have something on here, and I wasn't going to talk about this. And look, the officiating was bad yesterday. We had 4 penalties. 3 of them gave the Steelers, or 2 of them gave the Steelers first downs on long third downs, and 1 of them took a touchdown away. Okay, the officiating was bad. But at the end of the day, if you're a bad football team, you can't really complain that much about the officiating. Max Crosby yesterday shared a field with TJ Watt. And it was clear that as much as Max Crosby is a great player and as much as I love him, he's not in the same stratosphere as TJ Watt. And I'm going to get a lot of flack for saying this. But Max Crosby was partly the reason why Mark Davis went with Antonio Pierce. And so was Devontae, and so was a lot of these players that pulled a Rudy and said, basically, if you don't hire this guy, I'm out. And my point is this, Max. You're a great defensive player. You're a great defensive player. You're a top 15 defensive player. TJ Watt changes the game. Max Crosby is not having the same impact as a TJ Watt. So I don't know why we're giving Max Crosby the leeway to have any decision making as far as the head coach is concerned. And I hate saying this, but I'm going to tell it how I see it, and I'm going to keep it 100% real. I love Max. He's a dog. But if they fire Antonio Pierce and he's upset and he wants out, it's like, well, Max, GM's got to do his thing. We got to right this ship right now. I don't know. Yeah, Khalil Mack changed the game. And I do feel bad for Max. He had to deal with so much, and he wants nothing more than to be a Raider. But we got to do whatever is best for the team, man. It doesn't mean just hiring your best friend to be the coach. And again, I'm not out on AP, but his seat's warm. His seat is warm. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. Anyway, I see people saying that the Steelers line is better. The Steelers line is better. The Steelers line didn't do anything yesterday. Cameron Hayward had 1 sack. They had a few pressures. DJ Glaze let up 1 pressure yesterday to TJ Watt. It wasn't about the pressure that TJ Watt got. It was about when we were going to score and we had the ball at the goal line, who was the one who punched it out? He found a way to impact the game. And my point is not comparing Max Crosby to TJ Watt as if he's doing that all the time. But Max plays to a higher standard. I think if you asked Max yesterday how he played, he would say he wasn't good enough. We're not comparing Max to Joe Schmo. Max is a top 10 player in this league. That's all. That's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. He's held to a higher standard because he is a great player. And my point is if he gets upset, he has a right to be upset if we go through another coaching change. But he was partly the reason why Antonio Pierce has the job. That's my point. That's the point that we need to make here. So that's how I feel about that. And again, look, it's okay to say Max had a not great game. That's fine. He's a great player. Everyone is going to have a not great game. And speaking of, I just got an update from Bleach Report. Max Crosby untouchable in trade talks. Raiders would not entertain multiple ones for Max Crosby, and they shouldn't. Just to be clear, and this is Adam Scheffner on Bleacher Report. Never, ever, ever would I want Max to go. He is a Raider for life. He's the best defensive player we had since Khalil Mack, and he might be better. But yeah, there's no chance in hell that we're ever going to trade him unless he wants out, and I don't think he ever would. And I'm not suggesting that. That was great timing. But thank you, Bleacher Report, for posting that. Let's just try to get positive real quick here before we move on to maybe looking ahead. I don't know, because I hit everything else I wanted to talk about. And I'm going to stop this poll here. 59% of you think AP is on the hot seat. The one positive from this season so far, and I think it is an important one, and it's a big one, and maybe it's not helping us win games right now, but it's something that we haven't had in a long time. This draft class looks pretty dang good. Dylan Laube didn't help it yesterday. But these first 3 picks, Brock Bowers, Jackson Powers-Johnson, DJ Glaze, 3 starting caliber, potential Pro Bowl in the future. Brock Bowers is already a Pro Bowl type player. This draft class looks great. We'll see if these guys in the back end, the Cameron Richardson's been hurt, Trey Taylor's hurt. We'll see if these guys can develop. But for right now, there's no doubt about it. Tom Telesco, a guy who tried to move up for Jaden Daniels. That was Tommy T. We were trying to move up to get the quarterback who's shown to clearly right now be the best quarterback in this draft class. Caleb Williams is starting to do his thing as well. But Tom Telesco tried to move up for Jaden Daniels, so he's already shown that he knew Jaden Daniels was going to be at least serviceable, if not great. He hit on Brock Bowers. He hit on Glaze. One pressure yesterday against TJ Watt. He hit on JPJ. That's great for us. So now, if down the line, whether or not they decide to go with AP, which they might, or if they decide to go with a different new offensive mind head coach wise, they're going to retain Telesco, who's had experience being in the room when Bill Polian drafted Andrew Luck, and who's had experience drafting the next great franchise quarterback for the Chargers and Justin Herbert. Tom Telesco will be here to pick the next potential franchise quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders. And I think no matter who that coach ends up being, whether it's AP or a Ben Johnson or a Clint Kubiak or whatever, if they get the quarterback right, that's going to solve a lot of problems. Because if you get the quarterback right, the offensive line with these two rookies is starting to get better, right? 1 sack yesterday. You've got Trey Tucker and Brock Bowers to build around. You're going to need to find another number one-ish type receiver, and you're going to need to find a running back. Then we can start to build something. I don't know if we can have a Houston Texans like flip the script, go from the worst in the league to the best in the league type thing. But there is a potential, there is a road here to have a bright future if they hit on the quarterback. And Tom Telesco has shown to be a very good drafter. So only time will tell. But for right now, at the very least, Brock Bowers is a stud, and these two linemen that we drafted look like the real deal. So as dark and gloomy as it is right now, it's always darkest before the dawn, or whatever the saying is, right? We got to find our next franchise quarterback, assuming Aiden O'Connell doesn't come out and win every other game. I don't think that's going to happen. So that's kind of the state of the Raiders at the moment. We got a game next week against a not very good Los Angeles Rams team who's also banged up. We'll see what's going on with Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp or all the other guys that have been injured for them. If we can get some pressure on Stafford, maybe we win that game. We're 3-3, and who knows? Who knows? And then we got the Kansas City Chiefs. Good luck to us. But for right now, the offense as currently constructed with the injuries and the injuries on defense, it's just not good enough. And look, we've got a lot of guys out, even on defense. Marcus Epps is out. Christian Wilkins is out. Malcolm Kuntz is out. Diablo just came back and had a big impact. So, I don't know. It's tough sledding right now to be a Raider fan, but keep your head up because at a certain point, somebody will get in there and figure this thing out, whether that is AP and Telesco, whether that is Telesco and another head coach, quarterback combination. Start watching college football because I'm telling you right now, one of these quarterbacks, and you know what? Let's comment. Let's end the comments with this right here. Who do you want the Raiders to draft if they had free reign? If assuming they have the number one pick in the draft, which they probably won't, assuming they have the number one pick in the draft, who do you want it to be? And here's your options. Let's go Jalen Milroe, Shedeur Sanders, Carson Beck, Cam Ward, Jackson Dart, Drew Aller. Of all those guys, of the 6 readily available options, and to be honest with you, I can't really give you an answer because I haven't watched anybody besides Drew Aller because I'm a Penn State guy, and Drew looks okay. I'd be happy with Drew, but I'm sure there are better options out there. Who do we want? Who do we want? Comment below right now, assuming we're going to take a quarterback and not we're just going for Arch Manning next year. I see a lot of Shedeur Sanders. I see Carson Beck. Who else? I don't watch enough college. Okay, sure. Fair enough. I'm sure most people are going to say Shedeur Sanders, the best offensive lineman. Yeah, we're going to need another offensive lineman. Jalen Milroe. Okay. So we have some parity here. We have some difference of opinion. Cam Ward. I will say this is a good quarterback draft class to be in a position to draft one. And they'll be able to trade up because there's going to be some teams that are drafting a little bit higher, like the Bengals, who don't need a quarterback. So only time will tell. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching another live stream. If you like this and you want to see more of this kind of thing, I'm on YouTube, ALLaBorde Raiders. Just type that into the old search bar and it'll come right up. Tough sledding right now, but hey, you never know. Maybe we'll be 3-3. next week. Unlikely, but you never know. Reunite Beck and Bowers. I don't hate that. Thank you much. Thank you much. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.